Well, hello, friends, neighbors. John, your whiskey neighbor here, and welcome out to the deck. Beautiful late summer day here in the Edmonton area, and thought I would keep talking some bourbon with you guys. So, I'm going to look at, I just said bourbon. This is actually an American whiskey. I'll talk a little bit about why I think it needs to be called that, but it is an American whiskey. It's obviously a smaller release or perhaps a craft release. This is Slaughterhouse American Whiskey. If you've got a little bit of this or Tin Cup or what are some other American whiskeys come to mind? Anyways, pour a little. Don't be afraid to pour some bourbon and come back and we'll sip along.
3, 4.
Thanks for staying with me, and I hope you can tell I'm excited to find a moment to sit with you guys on a Saturday. So much to do with school starting up. It just is really hard to find a moment, but here we are. This is Slaughterhouse American Whiskey. You know, it's finished and bottled by Splinter Group, Napa, California. So it's sourced, and I don't know from where. It is really high corn, like something like 88% or something like that. And then there's like 8% wheat, and then there's some rye and some barley. So it's really a 4-grain mash bill. That would be fine to call it bourbon. And on their site, it mentions that it was aged in American oak for 9 years before being finished in French oak that held wine, probably from the Napa Valley in California. So, you know, like the age 9 years, the mash bill way over the minimum 51% corn. I'm thinking, why isn't it bourbon? Well, it could be that American oak aging were reused barrels instead of new virgin oak, which of course you have to be a bourbon. There could be other things going on in here too, but it's got some interesting credits. 44% ABV. It's got that 9-year and then finishing in French oak. So interesting. Let's see what the whiskey itself tells us. If you haven't had French oak wine aged or wine finished, then you might wonder, what is that puzzling heavy wine nose? But I've had a few releases now that are that have had that finishing, and I think this nose is shouting from the rooftop, wine finish. It is that waxy crayon that I get from Canadian whiskey. Why am I blanking? Gretzky, Wayne Gretzky, red cask. Like it's got that waxy crayon, that really almost juicy red wine. If you stay with it, you can get into some spicing. You can get into some almost Christmas spicing. Like there's some darker spices going on. But it just comes every time I come back in. It is that thick wine, triple oak Canadian. It's all Canadian whiskeys that I'm thinking of when I think of this. Yep. Well, let's give it a taste on the palate. Hope you have something. Cheers. Initial up front is exactly what I was talking about. A little bit of smooth, kind of creamy corn whiskey. I've got a bit of that. Very quickly, I've got those Christmas spices coming back. So now there is a richness, a little bit of chocolates, a little bit of what's that? Another Christmas spice, you know, that rummed Christmas cherries, like that kind of, you know, that what's we're playing. But very fruit forward. And then now that I'm talking, the longer finish, got an interesting interplay. But one more sip. Yeah, I'm not getting too much difference. You know, really an interplay between now oaks and some darker chocolate, and a grapiness almost. Now the finish, I was trying to held off a little bit, is quite tannic for me, quite bitter and quite tannic, and that's where I'm getting that, you know, drying French oak, which I kind of like, but I just can't escape that bitterness. we're going to compare it to a couple things that I think are kind of related due to what they've been through. But this was a disappointment for me. I got it on a really good price, and I thought, oh, 9 years and then some French oak wine finishing, I'm probably going to like this. It never came together. It really leans into that wine nature, which is very fruity, and then the oaking here to me is bitter. And the finish of the wine finish is like the finish of the drink, I think is quite tannic. And it plays in that waxy crayon, that red cask from Canada, if you've never had Wayne Gretzky. And in the end, it falls apart. And I have kept with this for quite some time. Like, it's been open for a year, I think at least. And I just wanted it to evolve, and it never got there. And so it's got enough pushing it into the 3 1/4 range. Like, wow, it's interesting. And it's so unique that it might touch all the notes that you like all of those kind of uniqueness, that, I don't know, that kind of the bitter oak or the heavy wine might be something great for you guys. So it's certainly not boring. Just didn't come together as a good dram for me. Okay, I don't have a full open bottle of Legent, but I did keep back a sampler to be able to do a couple of comparisons if it came to mind. And this, Legent bourbon is a collaboration between Fred No, a master distiller at Jim Beam, and then Shinji Fukuyo, I believe, is the master blender at Suntory. And so they got together on this, and I believe it's at least 4-year-old straight bourbon, low rye mash bill. And then some of that bourbon was finished in Oloroso sherry. Was it Oloroso? I think so. Or finished in California red wine, which is why I was thinking of the California red wine casking there. It's 47%, so it's a little bit stronger. Let's see what it gives us. Wow, this is bourbon. So now we're some more of that virgin oak's coming through. So I've got some nice caramels and toffees. It's actually quite a bit spicier. The fruits far more into the kind of light cherry range. Yeah, on the palate. Cheers. So the early palate, I'm still getting classic bourbon notes, but it does play a little bit more into fruit, juicier fruits. And it's in the finish that I get a little bit of that wine note, a little bit of that, oh, that's not just sherry. There's something, yeah. Wow, a little tannic, a little wine forward. I'm not sure how to say that. More than Oloroso, which gives me more the leather fruits kind of note. But it is a bourbon, and while sweeter and fruitier than their standard bourbon, it's not at all like this American whiskey. The third one I wanted to talk to you about is actually a single malt from Canada. Why would I think of that here with American whiskey? And it's actually 57.5%, so it's really quite a bit more. But it is a single malt that has been finished in French oak. So I'm going to water it down a bit to get it at least to play in this area. And I want to see what kind of notes I pick up with this comparison. So I'm getting so much more roast, espresso, not just chocolate, like husk of a walnut shell. Oh, okay. This is a wonderful nose. On the palate. Yeah, it was a mistake to pick a single malt. This is lightly nutty, very chocolatey, but a rich, thick chocolate. The fruits are there, but they are darker leathered, and they're held interplay because this isn't that French oak is a wine, but okay, that was kind of a mistake. It's fantastic. Not a mistake in terms of, I wonder if I should have a dram of that. Mistake because now I'm just going to want another dram of that. But the point here is I was trying to find some comparisons. The best comparison in my mind I can find is that Canadian whiskey's a red cask, very much so. A little bit the Opadan, that French oak, that one is also reminding me here, but I don't have that on the shelf. In the end, like I said, this is basically a 3-star for uniqueness. I'm giving it 3 1/4. Legent, I think I gave it more than like 3 3/4, 3.5 maybe. And this Shelter Point, oh my goodness! In this comparison, it screams 4 1/4. Like it just like go out and get a bottle. But it's very different flavor profile. Of course, we're all barley in here. This is like 88% corn. And this, what is their low mash bill? 75, 12 rye, something like that. Don't quote me, I'll put it down below. Thanks for joining me on this deck. It's actually pretty warm today, surprisingly so, but I'm so glad I had a moment to just talk with you guys. I look forward to it, and I hope giving you some thoughts, buying thoughts on Slaughterhouse, I'd pass it by. Take care.